Hello, good morning. This is Dr. Bill Williams, and we're here for a conversation with the CEO of StartedUP Foundation, Don Wettrick from Indianapolis, Indiana, on the Influencers Podcast. So let me bring Don on and welcome to the show, Don.
Hello, hello. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely great to have you here. And I know it's cold up there in Indianapolis, so
Oh man, yes.
you really know how to live in that weather. I'm sure Atlanta, Georgia doesn't know what to do with it compared to what you do.
And when I complain, people in Chicago and Minneapolis are going, hold my beer. This is nothing. So
That's true. So let's find out, where were you and what happened and who were you surrounded by that inspired you to do what you do today I know you're an educator.
yeah, I think first and foremost from the very beginning, just I always wanted to be my dad or like my dad. So my dad was an educator for several years. Actually, his whole career, I should say that, 30 years. And he influenced me in a lot of ways. Right when I finished my first degree, I was not always in education, but I went back to be a teacher. I think a large in part to seeing how he lived his life. But then fast forward to a couple years later, I started falling into this really interesting rabbit hole of leaders and I hate to say thought leaders because I think that there's a lot of action behind it. But I'd say chief among them, I had kind of an awakening on my, I think, 12th year of teaching. And it was a guy named Daniel Pink. And I was influenced by, him reflecting on what innovative companies had done to adjust and grow. And then I started also kind of falling into that understanding Simon Sinek and some of these people that I think are, again, deep thought leaders. Other than that, I think I also took a lot of wisdom from my students, starting to see this amalgamation of what inspired people and what the world was looking for. Because I always challenged myself of, if it's our job to prepare kids for the future, which is the most cliche and correct answer about education, what are you doing then that is futuristic? What are you doing to prepare them for the jobs of the future? And sit down and shut up didn't necessarily work anymore. And then secondly, going back to my dad answer, I just remember when my first 2 years outside of college, my parents paid for my college, which I'm grateful for. When I told them I wanted to go back and be a teacher, and which again, they had paid for it, and I was not asking them for money. I was an adult. But I remember he told me, he says, Donnie, I don't care if you teach for the next 20 years, just don't teach 1 year 20 times. And that has always stuck with me, not only as an educator, but also just in an approach of life. Always be adapting, always improving.
I like that last statement about don't teach the same thing 20 years, grow and innovate. So
Yeah, it didn't mean a lot to me in year one. And then as I started to progress, I was like, so that's what he meant. So
you learned a lot. So tell us the top 3 reasons people fail.
So I think the first failure is not trying or being afraid to and make a fool out of yourself. So ironically enough, number one is you didn't really fail because you failed to try. Sounds like I'm Yoda. Number two, I think the people that did fail, in some ways, it's because you're supposed to. If you're really challenging yourself, and by the way, this is the same approach I took to education. If you absolutely ace something on your first try, it really wasn't a challenge. At no other point in our lives, we didn't learn how to walk on our first step. For those of you that worked out, you didn't bench press your body weight on the first try. These things were always a series of trial and error. And so I think that those who fail almost expect it. And I don't want to say are okay with it. No one like, oh, great, I screwed up. But I think that there's people that have a high tolerance for that. And then lastly, the people that do fail that never wanted to and didn't adjust, they didn't adjust, right? There is no fail as if you quit then and there and like you're done forever. Okay, now you failed. Like you're done. Like there's no going back. So the people that have ultimate failure, you stopped where you were. I hate this. And by the way, there's several valid reasons why. I don't want to ramble on, but I'm by no means trying to be that toxically positive guy that says everything is perfect. It's not. But for those who want to move on, that's another thing. But I will say that I am a big fan of quitting. And if you fail at something and you realize this is not for you, this sucks, this is never going to work, great. You now have that opportunity cost taken away that you can now afford the time to do something else.
So I see the wisdom in that. There's a time to know when you've been beating your head against that wall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's look at this failure story and go, okay, what's your greatest failure story yourself? What did you learn and how did you recover from it?
I think my greatest failure, which this, I hesitate in sharing this because it really wasn't a professional thing. But I was getting off to the wrong foot when I was in high school, and I did some dumb things and found myself. Actually, the Southport Police Department found their way making a call to my parents, and again, this is kid stuff. I'm 50 years old. By today's standards, it was fairly benign, but it was a pretty big disappointment to my mom and dad. And if there's one thing I've never really wanted to do is to disappoint them. So there was a very long, quiet ride home, and I just wanted him to yell at me, and he didn't yell, and I was like, oh my gosh. And so when I get home, they expressed to me some things that were painful and hurt, and some things that I did not realize about myself or about the family, and I kind of made some decisions there. But the one thing that was funny, I was grounded for about 2 months. And there was this one girl in my science class. Sorry if this is too personal or too weird, but there was this one girl in my science class. I thought she was really pretty. I told myself I'd ask her out someday. And because I was a coward, I was like, this is the opportunity. I'll call her. I'll say, I know you're going to say no because I'm grounded until February. But when I'm ungrounded, you want to go out with me. And that's exactly what I did. I'm like, I'm grounded till February, and this is totally dumb, but will you go out? And she is my wife now. And so I never would have had the guts to ask her out. So I think that the worst night of my life, I have 3 children because of that dumb decision. So that is like my ultimate failure and my ultimate redemption, because I never would have asked her out. And she's still out of my league, by the way.
I think that might be your success secret more than your dumb move.
Yeah. 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 Like have a really good excuse to finally ask somebody out. But I was, dude, I was 16 years old and I was scared to death of asking this girl out, but I had the convenient excuse of being grounded. Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad.
Is that a success secret that others can model, or do you have 3 others?
Well, first of all, don't have the police call your home that your son is acting a fool. But no, I think the other thing is that, I try to read, and I try to learn from people. I mean, books are a heck of a thing, man. They'll take 30, 40, 10 years of wisdom and condense it down into about a 4-hour thing that you can go, okay, like, and so can movies, and so can sometimes songs or poems. But like, I think that's my other thing is like, I take a look at what worked for some people and go, okay, it's not a bad idea, or I'll never do that. But on the other hand, I also, in today's polarizing culture, there have been some authors that like, I don't agree with everything they've done. There have been some really successful people that I'm like, but you don't have to agree with every single thing someone successful has done. You can take some wisdom from them and still think that that's okay.
We're going to go now to lightning round. We're going to go for quickies, and you're going to say, okay, what motivates you internally?
My children.
What are your top 3 success secrets that you can model from?
They're not mine. I model off of other people, but constantly learning from people that are going through sometimes successes and failures. Secondly, having somebody that centers you and tells you no lovingly. So when you're too down, they pick you up. And when you're too high, they say that's enough. And number 3, and by the way, that someone surrounding you can be your spouse. They can also be people on your team. And then number three, I have faith that also guides me as well, which I guess is kind of like number two, things that guide me and things that keep me on track.
Yep. So you have a company motto?
This is my favorite one. I was looking forward to this. See a problem as an opportunity. We have a high school program that it's really called entrepreneurship, but we think entrepreneurship is seeing a problem as an opportunity.
And your students are your clients. So what is your ideal student?
But so are parents, right? Because just compliance and good behavior, which I'm not dogging, but once the students kind of get into this mindset of I can do things and try things, you might take a little bit of your eye off the ball on just academia. So our ideal clients is also converting parents to think maybe just sit down, shut up is not the only thing they should do.
How do you find those ideal parents, clients, students?
Shows success of students. Students and parents don't see themselves into a situation until they see themselves. And that's why we try to do a lot of media and showcasing what students are working on and how they're going about it.
So you have a well-defined product or service that you work to bring to the students?
Yeah. I mean, we have a curriculum. It's free for any student here in the state. We're going to be expanding to other states now, but yeah, it starts off with seeing a problem as an opportunity, knowing yourself, learning how to grow a team around your strengths, knowing how to build up around your weaknesses, and then executing on measurable goals and bringing something to the world.
So how would somebody take advantage of your services?
So StartedUpFoundation.org. And then we also run Innovate Within. So if you're in Indiana, any high school student, it's there. It's for the taking. But we now have schools that are purchasing wider variety of things from us. But why would they? Because students need to consider how to break down problems in a real way. Students need to have opportunities that are out there that are more than just academia.
And do you have competition?
I'm sure we do. Yeah. I mean, like here in the state, we're the state competition, although we're not funded 100% by the state. But I'm sure that there's other mindset courses out there. And honestly, I'm supporting them too. Good for that. Like there is more than enough opportunity and more enough of a need for this kind of entrepreneurship mindset at minimum in our schools.
How about handling objections?
It's part of it. I don't really, it doesn't bother me anymore, but I'm also 50.
Now, how do you deliver a 5-star client experience?
Oh, well, first of all, you can't every time. How do we deliver it? Follow-ups, making sure that there's measurable goals. But I also think in our genre, trying to work with more teachers. We have a fellowship now of several teachers that we're incentivizing them and we're working with them because we kind of have a train the trainer model as well, because taking on this massive amount of students is not realistic to make sure they get a 5-star experience. But working with a lot of our educators, we're hoping that they'll be able to work a little bit more intimately with the student than we can.
So leading from the experience, how do you convert those people, those clients into brand ambassadors for you?
Yeah, we celebritize great students and teachers. I think this is the fun part. I mean, in some ways, we have an unfair advantage in the sense that not only are we a program, at the end of the year, we have a competition. It's those top 10 that we take to other cities. We get an all expense trip paid for them. And then we brand what they're doing. We think that a lot of the things they're working on should be showcased, and all-star teachers, and I mean this, are actually an economic development tool, not just education. It's absolutely economic development.
Well, that leads us into the next question of what are you grateful for today?
The woman that said yes to me on that date, that fateful night in 1988 or 89.
Well, I'm afraid to ask, how do you start your day?
I could lie to you and say it start by working out, but normally it's 6:15 6:15 every morning. One of my best friends and sometimes co-host Jamal Crook. We get each other up, and then we have a little morning prayer, and then we go over what we're looking forward to that day, and what we're dreading. So I'd say a mental health accountability buddy is how I start off every day. And thank you, Jamal.
That's excellent. Most people just say coffee and go on. So what's your plan to achieve your goal, Don?
Keep building our team. It's success is a team sport, and we've been lucky to grow by an extra 5 employees this year, and onboarding a few more here soon. And we have got such an enterprising team. Because unironically, everybody on our team is very entrepreneurial or intrapreneurial, and then they see opportunities, and they see different other parallels that we can go off to, or how to serve our students better.
So what's the other side of the coin? How would you feel if you didn't achieve your goal?
I mean, it sounds cliche, but like, all right, what are we going to do? How are we going to change it? We didn't grow in this region. Why not? Who do we have to work? I just guess look for reasons on why we didn't achieve, I guess. And by the way, I also don't want to sound like I'm overly optimistic at all times. Of course, I get frustrated at times. So if you're like listening and watching this and rolling your eyes sarcastically, you're like, okay, there, Mr. But like, I do get frustrated from time to time. But for the most part, my default is, what did we do wrong? How can we improve?
Sure. Well, that leads us to how do you overcome a challenge and things that life throws at you?
Again, my relationship, my faith, my morning talks with Jamal, just having a series of people around you, and my team. Oh my gosh, I have a team at STARTedUP Foundation that is unparalleled. So yeah, I handle it through them.
So you look back 20 years at yourself and go, okay, what would I give myself advice at 20 years old?
No one knows really what they're doing. Go ahead and do it. Don't worry about what other people think. Do not. I mean, like, everybody's making it up as they go along. You can take all the different classes in the world, and those might prepare you, but nothing prepares you fully than just doing it and learning how to adjust.
Excellent. So, who's your living mentor, and what would you say is their impact?
My dad, and ever lasting. I can't. My dad doesn't complain. My dad finds the good in everybody. He's a different person.
So why is being impactful important to you?
I mean, why not? I think that making the decision to want to be, I think, is the first step. But like, I think that too many people are living their life on their phone and watching other people be successful. Me wanting to have an impact is like, put down the phone. You can be successful, and not saying I'm successful. Look at me. That'd be perpetuating it. But like, I want to be impactful so other people can realize that they are.
Well, I think educators basically go into the profession to be impactful, and you certainly have gone beyond what average educators do. What do you want to be remembered for?
A dad and a husband. Yeah.
How can we support you now? This is an important question to let us know.
Technically, not even technically, we are a 501c3 nonprofit. So you're like, hey man, it's the end of the year, and boy, do I want to write a tax deductible check. You can go to StartedUpFoundation.org. That's StartedUpFoundation.org. You can always make a donation, or you can just kind of check out, see what we do. We work with a lot of teachers. We've got a couple of other offers to enter more states. So if you're living in a state where you want to make introductions to other schools, or maybe your Department of Ed, always love those introductions. But other thing that how you can help us is that if you're a professional, that you reach out to your local school. How can students have the opportunity to learn from you? How might they gain access to, a shadowing day, or a micro internship, or a full internship? school is beyond just the little building with the flagpole at the top. It is an education that you can reach out to students and give them access to your insights, your network, and your job.
Excellent. So repeat again the website.
Sure. StartedUpFoundation.org. So StartedUp Foundation.org.
Excellent.
And then also, you know what? I take that. It might also just directly kick you back to Innovate Within. So it's Innovate Within, WITHIN. It might just redirect you there because that's all where all of our student traffic is going. But you can still make a donation there should you want.
Perfect, Don. What would you say about your guest experience on the show today?
I've had fun. I've looked forward to this because we had our pre-call, and then by the way, I enjoy pre-calls because then I get a feel. But no, I really enjoyed being on today, and I've never, I don't think, relived my I'm grounded for 3 months story on air. So.
We pulled out a unique part of your life experience. I'm glad to hear.
Yeah.
All right. Well, tell us what you would like to say as the final word. I'll give you the last 2 or 3 minutes here.
Yeah, my final word, and I was going off a little bit on this earlier, is that in some ways, I don't think that there's ever been a time there's never been a better time to be successful for a young person than right now. And there's also never been a tougher time to be successful than right now. We have this device, right, that is the greatest thing and the worst thing in the world. We can connect with great mentors. We can reach out to people. We can learn. We can watch videos on and learning how to grow, adapt, achieve. You can learn almost anything on courses and YouTube and everything else. However, we're also looking at the most addictive thing in the world. We have endless scroll. We have endless comparisons. We have beautiful people parading around and people feeling worse about that. So the advice I give to students is, what is the answer to that? Like, see a problem as an opportunity. I think a lot of people that download and stream are because you're watching someone else upload and achieve. When are you going to be the uploader? When are you going to go and take the journey to want to live out your purpose? And it's either something you're passionate about and you want to live for, or it's something you're very frustrated and bothered by, and you want to give your time and your efforts to have a better outcome. So, build that network, have people help you. Don't go it alone, but always try to see that problem as an opportunity. And then, again, that importance on building that network. There's so many people out there that will want to help if you feel like you're wanting to work on something, and that network will help support you and push you forward.
Don, that's wise words of wisdom from an educator who has dedicated his life to betterment of students and parental guidance along the way. So I hear you. I understand where you're going. I do wish you well. And I appreciate the time you spent with us on the Influencers Podcast. You're definitely an influencer, and there's a big future ahead for what you're doing. So I applaud you, and I want all of our listeners and our audience around the world to take heed that this is an important podcast, and I would urge you to share it and make known this activity that Mr. Don Wettrick is engaged in, because I think it's important. So thank you, Don, for sharing with us.
Thank you, Dr. Williams.
Take care, John. This is Dr. Bill Williams on the Influencers Podcast, and we just had a magnificent interview. I want to invite you to stay tuned for more podcasts with the Influencers Podcast. Stay with us. We're coming back live, and you're going to enjoy more as we go forward. Thank you.